right? So this is the worksheet we will start working with. Okay, like I said, here we have a very simple data. I have publishers in column A and the sales in column B. Now, how do I start with a formula? Rule number one, the formula always start with an equal to sign. So the moment you type equal to, you have started writing a formula. Okay, then what you have to do is you can either select a cell, or if you do not want to select a cell, you can also use the navigation keys to move to a particular cell, left, right arrow. So try that with me, everybody. Now, when you just select one cell and if you press the enter key, it will fetch the value from that particular cell. Always remember that if you're addressing a particular cell, then you will get the value from that cell. Okay. Now let's do one thing. What if I want to find the sum and display it here, the sum of all the sales? So what I will do is I'll type equal to, then I will select the cell, then I will type the plus button, sign, and then select the other cell, plus sign, another cell, plus sign, another cell, plus sign, and the final cell. And I will press the enter key. And finally, I will get the total sum. Okay. So this is the very basic way of writing a formula. Now remember one thing here, I have shown you how to create a sum, but there is a much better way to calculate the sum. I will talk about that when we cover math and trigonometry functions. Okay. Now let's say if we want to find the total sales after subtracting the sales of Nintendo, then how will I do it? So just type equal to. So this is the total sale. Then I want to subtract the sale of Nintendo, which is here, and I'll press the enter key. So this is how you work with formulas. It's pretty straightforward. Selecting could be a challenge when you don't have a mouse, but you will get used to it. And if you're using a mouse, it'll be much more faster. Otherwise, you have your arrows keys to do that. Now, similarly, like we calculated the sum and the difference, there are other mathematical operators like divide and multiplication that you can perform in a formula. Now, to divide, you can use a forward slash, and to multiply, you can use asterisk. So if I want to, let's say, divide this by this, then all I have to do is equal to this divided by this, and I will get the value. Okay. Similarly, if I want to multiply it, I'll select this, multiplied by this, and I'll get the value. So remember, for multiplication, it is asterisk. For division, it is forward slash. Now, since you want to work with a data analyst, I'm sure you had mathematics in your school or college, or even if you did not have that, I'm sure you are very familiar with the term which is called BODMAS. Yeah. So the BODMAS stands for bracket, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So when you are performing calculations in Excel, BODMAS rules also apply. Some of you may also know BODMAS as PEDMAS. I don't know whether you've heard about that, PED, where P stands for parenthesis, the bracket, E stands for exponents, D for division, M for multiplication, A for addition, and S for subtraction. So they both, BODMAS and PEDMAS, are the same thing. Yeah, they dictate the order of the operation of a mathematical operation. So I'm going to show you a very simple way to test this. I'm sure you have done it on a calculator, you have done it on a piece of paper, but do you know Excel also follows BODMAS? So let's try this. Let's say I type equal to B10. Let's say B10, which is this. Okay. Then I say plus B13, which is this, B10 plus B13. And then I'll divide that by B14, which is this. And then I'll multiply it by B12. If I press enter, I get 3.40. The same thing, if I use the BODMAS or the PEDMAS, then you will get a different value. So if I put the first two inside a bracket, yeah, so I've done this. And if I press the enter key, see what do I get? It's 3. Let me copy this so that you can see the difference, and I'll press Control Z. So now it does not have any brackets. And here I'm going to press the formula with the brackets. See the difference. So remember, Excel also follows BODMAS and PEDMAS in its formulas. Now, one more thing. How do you check? This is a tip which I'm going to share with you. How do you know how is it calculating these values? So when you're working with formulas and functions, you would want to know how a particular value is getting calculated. Okay, so I'm going to share how to see the calculation steps. I'm doing this exercise because in the future, if you get incorrect or unexpected values, then you can do this to find how the result was arrived at. Okay, select the cell. So let's say I want to find the calculation steps on this cell. Select this, yeah, that you want to evaluate. Click on the formulas tab. This is the formulas tab. In the formulas tab, there is a formula auditing group, right? And there above that, you will see evaluate formula. Okay, click this button and you will get this evaluate formula dialog box. So if you click on evaluate, see what happens. The value of B10 is 1. So it becomes 1, 4, 5, B12. See how it is calculating? And finally, you will see how it arrived at 3.4. If this screen is too small for you, feel free to test it on your screen as well. Remember, select the cell, go to the formulas tab. In the formula auditing, click on evaluate formula and simply click on evaluate button. Keep on pressing it till you finally arrive at the final value. Yeah, you can also use step in and step out buttons. If the underlined part of the formula, so when you see this B10 is underlined right now, so it is not a part of, let's say, a different workbook or a different worksheet. So obviously it will not work here. But remember that if the underlying part of the formula is a reference to another formula, then step in will display the other formula in the evaluation box. So try it. If you, in the future, if you refer to another worksheet, then it'll show you. Click step out to go back to the previous cell and the formula. Note that the step in button, yeah, this is not highlighted right now, but the step in button is not available for a reference the second time the reference appears in the formula. It has already showed you once. It will not show it to you again. Or if a formula refers to a cell in a separate workbook. Okay. You can also use the F9 shortcut key. If you check your function keys, you will have something which is called F9. So if I want to select B10 and B13, and if I press F9, that also shows you the values that are being calculated. So if I press F9 again, see, it show me 5 by 15. Okay. Now, one word of caution. When you are checking for values using this method, okay, do not press the enter key, because if you press the enter key, the formula will get overwritten. Let me show it to you. The moment I pressed enter, see, it's 5 by 15. So I'm going to press the Control Z so that I get my formula back. So remember that this F9 is only if you are, let's say, evaluating the formula at real time. Remember, do not press the enter key, otherwise you will lose the formula. Maybe you're so busy you will forget that you actually pressed the enter key after pressing F9. Okay, one last important thing before we move on to now functions. So we have understood what are formulas. Before we go on to functions, there are 3 basic Excel calculation modes. Now this is very important again, because I came across a user. He said, sir, I have typed the formula, but it's not calculating. And the answer is very simple, because the calculation mode setting was set as manual. Yeah, so you need to understand what are the different calculation mode settings. Again, in the formula tab, yeah, on the calculation group, which is right at the end, you will see something which is called calculation options right here. If you click on that, you will see you have 3 options: automatic, automatic except for data tables, and manual. Okay, what automatic does is it is by default checked unless you change it. This mode instructs Excel to automatically recalculate all formulas every time a value or a formula is changed in the worksheet. Yeah, so if this is automatic, all the formulas in the workbook will get calculated automatically. The second option is automatic except for data tables. Now, this mode instructs Excel to automatically recalculate all formulas except data tables. Now, data tables are not the Excel tables that we covered in the previous session. Those are normal Excel tables. So I will cover what are data tables in a future video. For the time being, let's keep this aside. We do not need to get into this. The last one is manual. So what happens is this mode instructs Excel to turn off automatic calculation in Excel. Now, why would I choose manual mode? So this mode is very useful. Okay, it's very useful when you have very complex formulas all across the worksheets. Let's say you have many worksheets, many complex formulas, and the calculation takes a lot of time. So like I said, if the calculation mode is automatic, if you make a small change, then the calculation happens automatically. And you do not want that, because in such a scenario, if the calculation mode is set as automatic, a small change can trigger a recalculation. And if it is taking a lot of time, then you would definitely not want that, because it will start calculating everything. So in that case, what people do is they switch off the manual automatic calculation. They keep it as manual. Okay, then how do you calculate it? Let's say you're writing formulas, everything is going on fine, because it is set as manual, and you're not getting interrupted by the calculation. Once you're done, you can either change the calculation to automatic, or if you want, you can also click on the calculate sheet button. Do you see this button here? This calculate sheet. If you click on this button, then this will calculate the active sheet. Okay, the calculate now will calculate the entire workbook. So if the formulas are in the other worksheets, they will also get calculated. Let's say you have complex formulas in different worksheets, and you do not want those formulas to get calculated. You want the formulas of this particular worksheet to get calculated. Then you can click on calculate sheet. Okay. Now there are other options here in the formulas bar. I will cover all of them in the future. There are like financial functions, logical functions, date and time, lookup reference. There are a lot of functions there. So I will only cover the important ones, which you will require or may require as data analysts. So enough about formulas, moving on to functions. Now, Excel functions are grouped into 12 categories. The first category is compatibility. The second category is cube. Then you have database, date and time, engineering, financial, everything is here. These are the different groups that Excel uses. Okay, all the functions can be accessed from the function library. This is the function library group. All of this can be accessed from here. Today, we will be covering 19 text functions. There are more text functions. So if you click on this, you will see there are a lot of text functions, but we will not cover all of them. We'll cover only 12. We will only cover the important 19 text functions. Okay, let's start off. Okay, by the way, if you do not know the name of a function, there are a lot of times when you suddenly forget the name of the function and you do not know, hey, I forgot what's the particular name of the function. Then you can actually search for it by clicking on the insert function button. Do you see this insert button? Click on this. Okay, so the moment you get this, you can actually type the description here. So if I type a brief description, let's say I do not know the name of the function, I just type join text. So I do not know the name of the function, let's say, and I only know the functionality of that function, which is to combine or join text. The moment you click on go, Excel will show you three functions: concat, concatenate, and text join. Text join, you may not see it if you are not using Office 365, Office 2019. Yeah, so old versions will not see text join. So whenever you're stuck, don't worry, just type a small description and click on the go button, and the Excel will suggest you different options. So remember that you can search for a function. As data analysts, there'll be moments when you'll have to import data from, let's say, websites or other sources, and it may contain unprintable text. Okay, so I have some sample data which is already imported in the by the web. So let's do one thing. Let me check something. Oh, yeah, go to sheet 2. Here in the sheet 2, let's consider now this range. You'll see a lot of stuff here. Ignore that. We will come to this in a moment. Look at this range, which is A1 to C6. I'm going to slightly zoom into it so that you can see it clearly. Do you see some unprintable characters here? So this data was imported from a website. Okay, so the A2 cell, I'm telling you this, A2 has the unprintable text, but what you do not know is one of the other cell also has unprintable text. I will come to that. So currently we have A2, we have B4, and there's one more cell. I will share that. It also has unprintable text. So, or rather characters. So how do we remove these characters? To remove such kind of non-printable characters, we use the clean function. So 19 functions that we are going to cover. The first function that we are covering right now is the clean function. The clean function removes all the non-printable characters and then returns the result. Okay, some of the most common non-printable Unicode characters are line feed, backspace, carriage return, horizontal tab, and vertical tab. Obviously, there are others as well. Now, these might not have a visible shape, but will have effects on the output. Now, here you can see a question mark here, but there are other characters which do not have a shape. You cannot even know they are there, and I will show you which are those. So there is one character which clean function does not clean. Okay, and that is a non-breaking space. The non-breaking space does not have a visual, how should I put it? You cannot see it. So right now you can see question mark here, but you cannot see it. So the ASCII value of that non-breaking space is 160. Currently the cell B2 has that. Okay, so if I double click on this cell, you will notice that after S, there is a, which looks like a blank space, but it is not a blank space. Okay, so I've shared this with you. I have put it, that's why I know it. You may not know it. So always remember that the clean function will not remove this. So let's try this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here and I'm going to delete everything from here. So how do I clean? Type equal to sign and then start typing the function clean. The moment you type two characters, Excel prompts you, press the tab button, and then you will see that Excel is prompting you for the text. So I'm going to select A2. I'll close the bracket and I'll press the enter key. You see how this question mark has gone away and now you can see Meena. Yeah. So I'm going to do the same thing for the entire range. So I'll copy like this. Okay. And then I am going to copy it down, fill without formatting. So I have got everything here. Right. Now, I mentioned that you cannot remove the special character, which is char 160 using clean. How do I know whether it is not removed? So this brings us to the next function that I want to share with you, which is len. Okay, so len function gives you the number of characters in a string. Okay, so how do I know? If let's do a small exercise. I'll type equal to len, start bracket. It's asking for a text, so I'm going to select hands and I'm going to close it and I'll press the enter key. And I get 5. Visually, you can see that the last name Hans is only 4 characters, but here it is showing 5 characters. That means there is something extra that we cannot see. Okay, I'm going to copy this formula and I'm going to paste it here. So this formula is now referring to Hans. Again, you'll notice that the length is 5. That means clean did not clean this. So remember that clean function removed the rest of the non-printable characters, but it did not remove the non-breaking space. So how do I remove this non-breaking space? Before I go ahead, quick recap: clean functions removes non-printing characters except char 160. The len function returns the length of characters in a particular string or text. Now coming to 160 character. How do I remove that? For that, you use a function which is called substitute. Okay, so substitute function replaces specific text in a text string. You can also use replace function to replace text. I will cover replace function next, but let's understand how substitute works, and then we'll move on to replace. Okay, what I'm going to do is now I'm going to type here, let's say equal to substitute, start bracket, and this is the syntax. So this is the syntax of the substitute. It's asking for the text. Now this is the text that I want to replace. Okay, the old text is char 160. So I will type char 160, close bracket, comma. I want to remove it, so the new text is nothing, it's blank. Okay, and I will close the bracket and I'll press the enter key. Now let's try and check what does len return for this cell. and I get 4. That means substitute was able to remove the char 160. Yeah, so remember, substitute is a very important function. Remember that it is used specifically when you are trying to remove a particular specific text in a text string. Okay, now you will notice that Excel, when we did this, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to press the bracket again. You will notice that Excel is prompting. So when you type this, let me type it again here, equal to substitute, right? I was talking about this. Right, when you do this, Excel prompts you this. These are called arguments. So text is an argument, old text is an argument, new text is an argument, instance num is an argument. One important thing that you will notice that the first 3 parameters do not have a square bracket around them. Okay, so what does square bracket mean? Any argument which is not within the square bracket is how should I put it? Is relevant. I mean, it is required parameter. You cannot skip it. Anything which is between the square bracket, you do not have to give it. So here, if you noticed, we did not give the instance num. So instance num is optional. So remember that any argument which is between the square brackets is optional and substitute together. So what you could do is you can copy this formula, okay, and you can, let's say, paste it here. And for F2, type clean. You can nest the functions like this. So I'll just check that. Not F2, this will be V2. Yeah. Similarly, you copy it this way. So now if you double click on it, you will see that it is referring to A2. So you can combine substitute and clean together to clean your data. So whenever you get a data from a website, you import data, always use substitute and clean to sanitize your data. Okay. The next function, which is similar to substitute, is replace. Replace function also replaces part of the string based on the number of characters you specify. So substitute doesn't do that. You do not need to specify the number of characters. The replace will specify, for the replace, you will have to specify the number of characters. This function is useful when you want to mask data, specifically when you're handling, let's say, confidential details like account numbers, credit card details, etc., etc. Let's take an example. If you look at this range, I'm going to scroll up. So if you look at this particular range, I have the first name, the last name, and let's say this is an account number, and I want to show the masked details here. Okay, so if you notice, if you have a credit card or a debit card, a statement that comes to you, you notice whenever you open the statement that your account number or your credit card number looks like something like XXXX dash. Okay, I'll type it so that you'll immediately remember. And then 5331. So this is the masking of the account number. So first characters are not visible and the last 4 digits are visible. So you can also achieve this. Okay, so how do I do this? How do I achieve this? I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. So we know this is the result that we want. So start typing equal to replace. Okay, start bracket. The syntax is old text, start number, number of characters, and new text. So the old text is the text we wish to replace. Okay, so here we want to replace, let's say, 1156. So that cell, which is C13. So that is the thing. Start number, which is the second argument, is also a required argument. It is the position within the old text of the first character that you want to replace. Now, this may sound very confusing, but as I start using the formula, you will understand how it works. The num characters is a required argument. All of these arguments do not have a square bracket, so all of them are required. This is the number of characters to replace. And finally, the last argument is new text, which is the replacement text. So I'm going to type, or rather I'll directly select the cell C13. So this is the old text. This is where I am going to apply the masking. And then I'll press the comma. Okay. Now it is asking for start number. So from where do I need to start? I want to start from 1, the first position. So I'll type 1. Okay. Then I'll type comma. How many characters do I need to replace? So there are 16 numbers, sorry, 12 numbers and 2 dashes. So that comes to 14 characters. So I'll type 14. Okay, and how do I replace, and rather what do I replace it with? So I'll start typing XXXX dash XXXX dash XXXX. Okay, and I'll close this and I'll close the bracket. Press enter and see how it masks the number. So if I copy this down, everything gets marks. Remember, once again, C13 is the old text, which is the old account number. 1 is the starting position. 14 is the number of characters. So 1156-5364-1283. These are 14 characters. So this is 14 characters. So this is what I am replacing with this. So this is how you use the replace function. Okay, pretty simple. Once you start working with this, you'll realize it is actually very, very simple. Okay, there are 2 important things while working with replace that you need to remember. You will get a hash value error when the given start number argument is negative. So here, the start number that we gave here is 1. If you specify -1, you will get a hash value error. So if you're getting a hash value error, check your start number, is it greater than equal to 1? Okay, you will also get the same error when the number of characters, which is this argument, okay, is negative or non-numeric. So if you do not specify a number here, and if you specify a text, or if you specify a value which is less than 1, then you will less than 0, then you will get an error. Okay, so I'll press Control Z. Moving on to the next function. The next function we will cover is concatenate. I'm sure you must have heard about this function. You can use the concatenate function to join 2 or more text strings to make one string. From Excel 2016 onwards, concatenate function has been replaced with something which is called a concat function. Okay, so you will also see the concatenate function, but that is there only for compatibility reasons with the earlier versions of Excel. So if you type, let's say, if you remember when we were searching for the text join thing, you remember insert function, and it suggested 2 functions, 3 actually, with the text join. So if you type, let's say, equal to con, you will notice you have concat and you also have concatenate. You will notice that the concatenate has a exclamatory mark. This is to tell you that this is there only for compatibility reasons. But if you, let's say, type concatenate for people who are using old versions, this is the syntax where you can select different values and it will concatenate the values. Okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to share it here. Let's say I want to, let's say, go back here. Now I want to join first name and last name. So you can actually do this, Meena, comma. Now notice what happens. It is asking for text too, which is again optional. So if I select Hans, the last name, and if I close the bracket and if I press enter key, see what I get. I get Meena Hans. But this is not what I want. I want Meena space and then Hans. So how do I modify the concatenate function? Insert a space within quotes. Since quotes is a string, you will have to put it within quotes. And then if you press the enter key, you will get Meena Hans. So similarly, you can also use the concat. So if I remove this part, it will still work. Remember, concatenate and concat are same. So this is very, very clear. Okay. Now let's move on to the next function, which is called trim, T-R-I-M. What happens is, okay, when you combine two, let's say, I'm going to take an example, it will be much more easier. Okay, so if I copy, or rather I'll type it from the scratch. Okay, and if I type equal to this, the other way of joining two is using the ampersand sign. So you can type A21 ampersand, within quotes you put space, ampersand, and Hans. This will also give you the same result. So remember, concat, concatenate, and ampersand, they all do the same thing. Now if I copy this down, okay, and I fill this, you will notice there are a lot of spaces here. Now you may think that, hey, I can remove the extra space using clean. No, you cannot do that. For this, you have to use a function which is called trim. You cannot use clean function to remove these, as these are not non-printable characters. These are printable characters. Okay, so we will use the trim. The trim function, it removes all the spaces from the text except for the single spaces between words. So Meena and Hans has one space between it. Trim will not remove it. Trim will remove all the extra spaces, whether it is leading space or trailing space or lot of spaces in between. Okay, trim will also not remove the char 160. Remember that. Trim will only remove these spaces. Now let's try it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, or rather I will first take you to the syntax of trim. So I'm going to type equal to trim start bracket. It is expecting a text. Okay. So now what I am going to do is I'm going to select Meena here, and I'll close the bracket. And I will then copy this down, and I'll copy this across. So this is now what this is. How do I know whether trim removed the extra spaces or not? Remember, you can always use len. Start bracket, Meena, close bracket, enter. It is 4. Yeah, just visually looking, you know, it's fine. Here, you'll notice that it is showing 9, but Agni is only 4. That means there are some extra spaces here. Similarly, Gurdeep, Sahota, etc., etc. Gurdeep, Aditi, Arjun. This is the best way to check whether there are some extra characters or not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to use trim here. So either you can do this, or you can also use the concatenate function. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to use concatenate equal to, and press enter. Copy this down, fill without formatting. Okay, and what I will do is I'll type trim, and this will become this, and this will become this. Okay, and I will copy this down. Everything is now fine. See how the extra spaces have been removed. So remember, you can nest different functions in between each other like we did above. So trim will remove the extra spaces. The next 3 functions that I will cover are very simple. Okay, they're very simple to understand. So if I want to, let's say, convert these to uppercase, then you can type equal to upper, select the text, close the bracket, press enter, and you will get upper. Similarly, you can have lower. So if you type equal to lower, select Mina, and you close it, it becomes Mina. The third is the proper. The proper function converts a text string to all proper case letters. So proper case letters is the first character is capital and the rest of the character is small. So if I type equal to proper, and then if I select this and I close this, you will get Mina with a capital M. Okay, moving on. These three were pretty simple. Now the next three functions that I will share with you will show you how to extract a given number of characters from a specific position. The first function that we will cover is left. Okay, so if I go back here, let's say I want the first 4 characters from this account number. So I can use something which is called left, equal to left, start bracket. It is asking for the text. I want to select this. And the number of characters that I want from the left is 4. So if I type 4 and if I press enter, I get 1156. So remember, this is how you use left. Just like you use left, you can also use right. So equal to right, start bracket, this text, and let's say I want 9 characters from the right. So I will get 1283-5331. So I get 9 characters from the right. The third function, which does the same thing, that is extract text, is called the mid function. Okay, so if I type mid, see what happens. It is asking for the text. I'm going to select this. The second parameter is it is asking the start number. So start number means where do you want to extract the text from? So if I look at this, let's say I want 5364. So the position of 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th position, the number starts. So I want to specify from the 6th position, please extract 4 characters. And I press enter and I get 5634. Remember, is equal to mid C13, 6, 4. So this will extract 4 characters from the 6th position, which is 5364. Pretty simple formulas, functions. These really will help you when you are cleaning data as data analysts. The next function is that we're going to cover is called a value function. The value function in Excel gives the value of a text representing a number. The function was introduced in Excel 2007. I hope everybody has Excel versions greater than 2007. So you can see this function. You will have access to these functions. Okay. So what I will do is let's go to A28 or A29 rather. We will use this range here. Okay, and I will share how the value works. So right now you see these numbers here. So when you are importing data from a website, it is possible that some numbers will be right aligned, some will be left aligned. That means these numbers are stored as text. Either you can click on convert to number by clicking on this exclamatory mark, or what you can do is you can type equal to value, start bracket, and then you can select the cell. And if you close it, you will get 70,000. So value converts the text stored as number to number. Always remember this. Similarly, you can do the same thing with dates. This is interesting. Just watch this. Equal to value. And I select this and I close it. And I get 36590. But the date is 5 of March 2000. So what happens is Excel stores dates as numbers. I will go into dates in one of the future videos when I'm talking about date functions and all that. So basically what Excel does is it stores dates and time as numbers. So if I type, let's say 1/1/1900, yeah, and then if I type value, see what happens. You get 1. So remember one thing, the date starts from the 1st of Jan 1900 and the numerical value of that is 1. So today, if it is 7th of Feb, then 7th of Feb will have a specific value to it. Sorry, 2023, which is, oh, I've got it in reverse. 23. Okay, so that is 44964. So remember, this is how the values work. Similarly, you can copy this and paste it here. It will refer to time. This is how the time is stored. So if you copy the formula down, it will refer to these cells, and this is how it will convert them. So remember, values are used to convert text numbers or numbers stored as text to numbers. Now, you may say, okay, Sid, this is fine. I've used value on this value, but I've lost the rupee symbol. How do I get that? Valid question. So for that, I'm going to share something which is called the next function, which is text function. The text function converts number to text by changing the way a number appears by applying formatting to it using format codes. So how do I do that? I'm going to type here, let's say equal to text. Rather, I'll do it here. I've created this section for that. So if I type text, start bracket, the value. So I'll type value and this cell, okay, and comma, then it is asking for the code. I'm going to put the code right now, but I'll tell you where you can get that code later from. Okay, so if I do 0.00, okay, and I close this and I press enter, See, you get 60,000. But always remember, the text function will convert the value to text. Yeah, it will no longer be a number. This is usually required when you are, let's say, formatting an email. Okay, I'll come to that part in a moment. I'll show you how to do that. So remember that. So if I have to put a rupee symbol, let me quickly copy a rupee symbol from the web. One quick moment. Give me a moment. I'm going to copy a rupee symbol from the website. Okay, I've copied this. Let's come back here. And I put it here. And I press enter key. See? So these are the text codes. Now the syntax of the text formula, I've already shown it to you. If I press the, if I click this area, the first parameter is value. So the value is the value which you want to format. And the format text is the format we want to apply. You can see the most commonly used format codes by right-clicking on any cell, right-click on that and click on format cells. In the format cells dialog box, go to custom, and you will see a lot of format codes here. So you can use any of these format codes within this double quotes, and the text will format it if the format code is relevant. Okay, you can use text to format a particular number, like I've already shown it to you with the rupee symbol. Similarly, you can show date in a specific format like MMDDYY. So if I go here and I'm going to copy this here, okay, I will have to provide a format here because right now it is referring to a date cell. So I want, let's say, DDMMYY. And if I press enter, I get DDMMYY. So if I want DD-MM-YYYY, I can do that as well. And the date will be formatted accordingly. Yeah, so remember, text, you can use it to format a particular value. Function locates one string within a second string. Okay, so let's say if I want to find IN in Meena. So here we have MINA Meena. Let's say I want to find IN, then it will return the position of IN in Meena. So that is what the search is used for. Or rather, if I take a different example, if I go to this sentence, this is a sample sentence. So if I want to find the position of the word sample, where is the word sample in this sentence, then I can use the search formula. How do I do it? Okay, let me scroll towards the right. I will type equal to search, start bracket, sample. That's what I want to find, comma. Okay, and then I want to find it in this cell. Okay, and then I have to press bracket, and it returns 11. That means the sample word is at the 11th position in this particular sentence. Let's check it. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Even spaces are considered as characters. So they also count towards the length of a sentence. So the sample starts at the 11th position. Yeah, you can also use search function with replace function. So if you want to replace the first occurrence of sample, which is here, yeah, and if you want to replace this after the 6th position with the word, let's say, common, you can do it. So I've already written the formula here. You can see replace I35 search sample. Now another thing that I want to share with you is I'll type this sample and I'll press the enter key, and it converts this is a sample sentence to this is a common sentence. So remember one thing, you can use replace and search together. You can also use wildcards. So if I change this to, let's say, asterisk, it will still work. Yeah, you can use the wildcards in the search function. So just like we use the search function, the next function is find. The find function does the same thing as the search function, but there are a couple of differences. Now, the find function is case sensitive. Right now, what I did here is I typed equal to search sample I35. If I type small s and if I press enter, it will still return the text. That means search is not case sensitive. But with find, you have to ensure that the text that you're finding is written exactly like it is. The second thing is, like search allows wildcard characters, find does not allow wildcard characters. Yeah, always remember that. Also, if I try this, let's say if I type equal to find, start bracket, and if I type sample, see I've written in capital letters deliberately, comma, within this text, and if I close the bracket and if I press enter, I get hash value error because it has not been able to find that value. I hardly use find. I love using search. The only time I use find is when I want to do a case sensitive search. Moving on to the next 3 functions. These are the last 3 functions for this session, but these are very important. If you do not have Office 365 or Excel 2019, then you will not be able to test this. Okay. If you remember in the beginning, I explained how the concatenate function works, how the concat function works. The main drawback of the concat function is that you cannot specify a full range. So if you remember when we used the concat function, where did we use it? Here. So when we used the concat function, we used 2 cells. One here, one here. Okay. But what if I wanted to concatenate all of them together? You cannot use concat function. Yeah. Or rather, if I say is equal to concat and I use a range like this, I cannot do that. Concat will not allow that. It requires an argument, single cell argument, or a text. You can't give a range. Yeah. So for this, there is something which is called a text join function. The syntax of the text join, I'm going to show it to you here, is equal to text join as the tab key, and you'll get this particular prompt, which is delimiter ignore empty comma text. Okay, so the first argument is the delimiter. How do you want to concatenate the range? Do you want to use a comma? Do you want to use a space? What do you want to use? Let's say I want to use comma. Do you want to ignore empty cells in that range? So if you want to ignore empty cells, type true. If you do not want to ignore empty cells and you want to include empty cells, type false. So I'm going to type true. Okay, and then I have to select the range. So what I can do here is I can, let's say, select this. Okay, and I'm going to close the bracket and I'll press the enter key. See how I get this? Meena Hans, Agni Dalal, Gurdeep Narayan. So text join allows this, concatenating multiple cells in one go. So Microsoft came up with this because a lot of people were tired of using concatenate and concat because they were not able to concatenate the entire range. The only way was using VBA. So this is a really important function. Remember that. Now, the other thing that I want to share with you is, this is interesting because everything was together here, the first name and the last name. Now, what if the first name is separate and the last name is separate? How do I get this result? Okay, so to do this, you have to use the text join. Look very carefully. You will obviously get the video recording, but remember this. First thing first, enter a space type, comma, and then space, and press the enter key. Once that is done, then type equal to text join start bracket. Now, earlier in the above example, we gave one delimiter, correct? Now you can give two delimiters, which is here and here. And then I'm going to type true, which is for ignore, and then this. See what happens. It did the same thing like what it did here. But the only difference was here, the data was one below the other. Here, the first name is in a separate column. The last name is in a separate column. So this is what I did. Once again, C45 to D45 is this range where I had entered a blank space. And here I entered comma and blank space. This blank space is for the space that will go between the first name and the last name. And the comma is which will go between the first name and the second name. So text join is a very powerful function. As data analyst, you will be using this a lot. Okay, the next function is text split. This function is the inverse of text join. Like in the text join, we are joining text. In text split, you are splitting the text. The text split function works the same as the text to column wizard. I've not covered this still yet. In one of the future videos, I will cover this. So it works exactly like that. Okay, so you can, in fact, what it does is it lets you split the text across columns and down by rows. Let's understand the syntax first. Okay, I'm going to delete all of this stuff. Let me type equal to text split. Okay, and then I type the bracket. The syntax is text call delimiter, row delimiter, which is optional. Ignore empty is optional. After that, everything is optional. Okay, so what exactly is happening here? The text parameter is the text that you want to split. Okay, the column delimiter is the text that marks the point where to spill the text across columns. Again, this may sound confusing. Don't worry, when I explain it with an example, you will understand it. The row delimiter, which is an optional parameter, it marks the point where to spill the text down the road. Rows, not roads, sorry. And rest ignore empty is like you can specify true to ignore consecutive delimiters. This is an interesting parameter. I will explain this as well. And then there is the match mode. So match mode, specify one to perform a case insensitive match. The default is 0, which does not, which does a case sensitive match, which is again optional. The pad width is the value with which to pad the result. The default is #NA. There are many practical use of this function. You may ask, why do I need to split the text? Yeah, so you can, for example, if you have received data where the first name and the last name are together, then you can split it using this function. So I'm going to test this. Okay, let's start with a very basic test, and then I'll take you to a more complex test. Let's do the test in this cell. So I'm going to type is equal to text split, and then A40, which is Meena Hans. Okay, comma. It is asking for a column delimiter. And I press enter. Sorry, one moment. It's acting funny. One moment. Text Meena Hans into 2 cells. And now if you copy the formulas down, it will split the rest of the names. Okay, it's very simple. So there are times when the data has multiple delimiters. For example, check the value in D57. Okay, I deleted that. Let's go back. Yeah, this is D57. Now look at this value. Now you have comma, 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 and then do you see April dash May? So you have multiple delimiters. One is a comma, one is a dash. Then how do you do that? So you can type equal to text split, start bracket, and then you select D57, which is this, and then you do a comma. And then to specify two delimiters, put them within curly brackets. Okay, so first I type comma, and then I will type the dash, and then I'll close the curly bracket. So here I've specified two delimiters, and then I'm specifying a colon. Now notice what happens. The moment I press enter, what happened here? First, the D57 text was split using comma and dash. So there's comma here and dash here, and then it used a colon for the row delimiter. So here, this is the colon after December. So I'm telling after colon, the text will go into the next line. And again, it is using the comma delimiter and it is splitting the text. So if I take this text and I paste it in a new cell, and if I do it again, I will type it as equal to text split, start bracket, select the cell, comma, there are two delimiters, comma and dash. So I'll put it within the curly brackets. I'll put comma, comma, and then dash, close the curly bracket, comma, and then the delimiter which I have to specify is colon, because that's where the values are changing here. So I've specified that, close the bracket, press enter, and the data is automatically split into rows and columns. See how powerful this function is. Okay, now I want to share another amazing example. This is again a complex example. Now, what if, okay, what I will do is I will insert one comma here before the March. So now there are two commas, okay, and I press enter. See what happens. This is now blank and things have moved towards the right. And obviously there's no value for December, so you're getting hash NA. So if I do not want the formula to split it into a blank cell, I want it to ignore the empty cell, then what you have to do is you have to set the parameter, which is, I explained earlier, the ignore parameter. Let me type here. You press the comma here. This is what I was talking about, the ignore empty parameter. So just set it as true. That means you're telling the formula that please ignore the consecutive delimiters. So if I press enter, see what happens. Everything is back now. Yeah. If you go towards the right, everything is fine. This was very simple. So this was text split. Moving on to the last function, which is array to text. Again, a very powerful function, very important functions to know. This function returns an array of text values from any specified range. The text values which are passed remain unchanged and is converted from text values to text. Okay. The syntax is equal to array to text, and then it is expecting an array and a format. So the first parameter, which is array, it is the array to return as text. This is a required parameter. And then you have the format. The format of the returned data. This is obviously optional, and it can have two values, either 0 or 1. If you type 0, then it's a concise format. It is very easy to read. Okay, the text is that is returned will be the same as the text rendered in a cell. It has general formatting applied. Now, when I say general formatting, I have not covered this till now, but I will cover it in one of the future videos where a cell can be formatted in different ways. So the general formatting is there. If the text is formatted as number with, say, rupee symbol, then those will be removed. Otherwise, whatever formatting you have will be copied to the output. If you change this format to 1, then this becomes a strict format. The first one was the concise format. And this will, what it will do is it encapsulates the returned string in quotes. But this is not true for Booleans, numbers, and errors. I will just show this quick example. Hold on. Okay, let's go here. And if I type, let's say A13, which is this, to A17. If I select this, and if I type, or rather, I'll do it here only. Or let me copy this. Okay, Trinity, you may have to look at the time, and if required, could you please extend the time if required. Type comma and then 0. That's a concise format. And if I close the bracket and if I press the enter key, see how I get Meena, Agni, Gurdeep, Aditi, and Arjun. But if I copy the formula again and if I paste it here and this time I change it to 1, see what happens. The text is now within curly brackets. And since Meena, Agni, Gurdeep, Aditi, and Arjun are text, they are within double quotes. So if I see another example, let's try it with numbers here. So if I type, let's say, equal to array to text, okay, and if I type C2 to C6, okay, and then if I type 0, see what happens. Array to text has stripped the rupee symbol. So this is what I was telling you. When you use it with numbers, it will remove the formatting, but not in case of text. Now, what if I use 1 instead of 0? So I'm going to copy this again, and if I paste it here, and if I change it to 1, and if I press enter, you will notice that it is within curly brackets, but the numbers now are not within double quotes like this text is. So remember that when you are using array to text, the text will be put within double quotes and the numbers will not be put within double quotes in the strict formatting. Also, if you're using it with numbers, it will strip the formatting. Now, where can you use this array to text? I always ask myself whenever I'm using a function, where can I use this? You can use this function to create nice little list from your data for, let's say, your emails. This is a pretty straightforward function, very easy to understand. So for example, if you want, in fact, oh, you know what?